Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Mark Gabberti, and this is the podcast for entrepreneurs who are looking for the breakthrough for their businesses. As we're continuing to put in all this work to achieve our goals and grow our businesses, we can find ourselves spending so much time in our businesses that we're not able to treat our bodies right. We're not able to get the amount of fitness that we know that we should be getting. And I feel like fitness is a big goal that a lot of us have, but a lot of different things get in the way. So that's why this episode is going to focus on how you can grow your business while burning fat and gaining muscle. So this is good for you if you want to burn some fat. This is also good for you if you want to gain muscle and get stronger than you currently are. And so today's guest is the co-founder of Open Sky Fitness, which helps people with careers and family find time in their day to eat healthy, exercise, and practice mindfulness regularly. Open Sky Fitness is hosting the Sky Fitness Challenge, which will include an exclusive community of people who work out for 20 minutes or less each day. That link will be included in the show notes of this episode, in addition to some of the other things that we're going to mention towards the end as well. Today's guest for episode 147 of the Breakthrough Success Podcast is none other than Rob Dionne. Rob, it is such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Mark, the pleasure's all mine. Thanks for having me. I appreciate this.
Rob, it is a pleasure. I'm really looking forward to our time together, and I want to, before we get deep into how we can continue to grow our fitness while we're growing our businesses, I'd love to get some backstory. So what first ignited this desire of yours to grow your business while having the time to burn fat and gain muscle? Like, where did you have that desire to make all of that happen in your life?
Well, I kind of took a indirect route. I was I was an actor in Los Angeles, as many people come to Los Angeles to be, and I had always thought about being a personal trainer, but I wasn't necessarily the healthiest guy. I was more a guy that would work out consistently, but I didn't know anything about nutrition. Grew up in a family where, yes, my mom cooked almost every meal. It was more of a financial thing than it was about being healthy, right? That wasn't the choice behind cooking in my family. So when I was a kid growing up and go into my 20s, I didn't really have any tools to how to eat healthy. And I was with my girlfriend, now my wife. We've been together. I'm 40 years old, and we've been together since 2000. So we've been together almost 20. Actually, Jesus, this is 20 years, I think, around there. 18 years. So we've been together for a long time, and we just as we progressed as kids and growing up, we learned to be a little bit healthier, little bits at a time. And it didn't really take effect for me in terms of knowing what was healthy or figuring out what was healthy until I was about 30 years old. I was standing at the waterfall. We were on our honeymoon in Hawaii, and I'm standing at a waterfall, and my wife, Devin, who's the co-host of my show, she snaps a picture of me standing there with my shirt off. Totally caught me off guard. My gut is hanging out, and I look at myself, and this was before digital, so we had to develop this picture thing, so it's like, great, now I have a physical copy of this, which disgusted me. And I couldn't believe how, yes, I had muscle mass from being the guy who was always lifting weights, but I looked gross and I felt gross. And I wasn't taking care of myself on the inside. I was just taking care of myself on the outside. I was just doing like workouts. And that was the moment where I realized there's a problem here. I have a complete imbalance of how I look at my health. And so that was where the journey started for me, where I really started paying attention to nutrition. And that was 10 years ago. And how to implement that into, with my clientele, which I had just started becoming a personal trainer at the time. And it was a really wishy-washy starting point. So for a lot of people that, that are listening to the show and that are entrepreneurs, because I know that's the base of this show, the struggle is that you want to get healthy. The solution is not to become healthy immediately. That's just not how it works. There's a lot of learning that comes in with being a healthy person. You have to learn how you eat, what works best for you in terms of your workouts, what works best for you in terms of your lifestyle, your mental, your relationships. All of these are factors that come into you being healthy and losing weight and being like, I know that a lot of people want to burn fat and build muscle mass. it's not just about lifting weights and just starving yourself, which is what a lot of people probably think that it is. There's a whole lot of lifestyle tweaking that needs to happen, and that takes time. So that was 10 years of me doing that and really figuring it out. And my wife is a holistic nutrition counselor. So along the way, she got, she was giving me great information. She's also a gyrotonic instructor, and I was the personal trainer. And now as you know, because you mentioned it as well, that we have a podcast we've been doing for over 4 years now, where I've interviewed some of the best in the business when it comes to health and wellness, mindset, just lifestyle work, and how to be super healthy. So the learning that it never ends. The learning never ends when you're trying to get healthy, when you're trying to lose body fat and trying to be as healthy as you possibly could. So that's a kind of a long, very long-winded, roundabout way of kind of talking about how I got started. There's lots of other little intricate parts of it, but that's basically what the last 20 years has looked like for me, and ramping up to where we are now, where, keeping myself at around 10% body fat and having muscle mass that makes me feel really strong and comfortable in my skin, and making me feel like I can take my shirt off at the beach or go to a pool. That's something that, that now is like a normal thing for me, where it wasn't necessarily maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I would be very uncomfortable with that. And so this has been, it's a journey, and it's a journey for all of us. The same way in which, I imagine you starting your business and trying to, build up your podcast and doing that. It's all a journey. It's a learning lesson along the way. Would you agree?
Yes.
Good answer, Mark.
And for anyone who wants to check out Rob's podcast, the Open Sky Fitness podcast, that link will be in the show notes over at markberry.com/E147, along with any of the other resources that get mentioned throughout this episode. And one of the things that I'm interested in, you mentioned something really interesting in your story, where like in college, like you were an athlete, like you have more time in college, and then you have that transition. And I find that especially interesting in my personal case, because I'm a college student right now, I'm running, so like it's easier to maintain the level of fitness that I want. So how do we maintain our existing fitness? Because some people, like, they feel like they're fit, they want to develop on it, obviously, but they want to also maintain what they already have, so it's not like they're falling back based on the gains that they've been able to have.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is that you can't look at fitness as kind of a one-off, like or an end goal, or like when I do this race, if you're signing, I know that you said you're running, if you're doing races, and you're just going to do a marathon and that's your goal, well, great, it's a great goal to have, to do a marathon, but what's next? What's after that? And so if your reasoning for doing all of this stuff is just to compete and do things like that, it's not necessarily, when you're an athlete, athletes are not healthy. Let's make that distinction first. Athletes are not healthy. Usually, especially if you're a professional athlete, the goal is not to be as healthy as possible and look the best, right? The goal is to be the best, is to win the game or whatever it is that you're doing. So whatever it takes to do that is what that athlete will do. So if you're training for a marathon and that's all you're doing, can it be potentially healthy? Yeah, a byproduct of it is your cardiovascular is improved. You'll probably lose some body fat. Maybe it'll improve your blood panels. There's probably a lot of benefits that'll come along with it. But if your goal is to consistently improve your time and to get better and faster every single time, and then you start buying different pieces of equipment, whether it be like these technology watches or different pairs of shoes, and investing in all of your outerwear, well, then you've probably lost track of the healthy aspect of this, right? Then that's what happens to a lot of people. They get mixed up in achieving these goals, these physical goals that end up leading down the path of just getting better, faster, and stronger, and not necessarily on, is there a longevity in what I'm doing, and will that carry me over for the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Mark, so you're in college right now. How old are you?
20.
So you're 20 years old. So when you're 20 years old, it seems like your body will never break down. Maybe you've had injuries in the past, I'm not sure, but most 20-year-olds, they usually haven't struggled with much stuff yet, besides the freshman 10, maybe, where you're struggling with that. And then you're like, oh, well, I got to try to drop this body fat. But in reality, when you turn 30 or 40 And 50, a lot of the people that are in my community that listen to my show, that's our demographic. These are people who are realizing very quickly that if they don't get started on being healthy now, that road is getting longer and longer and longer. And right now, the road is short for you. Not necessarily, I mean, unless, of course, again, you're dealing with something that I don't know about. But the road is a lot shorter when you're younger, which is one of the reasons why we don't give a crap when we're young. You know, we don't care when we're young about our health. We'll eat chili dogs and pizza and tacos and whatever it is, drinking beer all night. That's the norm for most college kids because healthy is literally right on the other side of the fence. For most kids, you know, guys, I'm sure you've seen guys that you've gone to school with that put on a few pounds and then they hit the gym for maybe a week or a month or two and they've dropped all the weight and they look ridiculous because they're young, their genetics are strong, their metabolism's fairly quick, and they get results very, very quickly. The average person, when you pass 30, that stuff starts to slow down very fast. Your results are going to be based on real changes. Not just like P90X changes, but like real lifestyle changes. So this is kind of like, I think, how things have changed for me over the years. I didn't care when I was in my 20s, and I don't think most people do unless they're dealing with something. But I think it's if you make the changes now, Mark, and I'm not sure that's what you're necessarily asking, but for people that are in that age range that are listening to the show right now, if you make those changes now, I promise you, down the road, you are going to be so much happier that you did, and you're also going to be a monster. I mean, a monster in your health. There's not many people who get started very early on in life, and it's an amazing thing to me when I see people that do, because they've got life by the gonads. They really do. It's pretty amazing.
And I feel like a lot of people, they resonate with your sentiment. They know that fitness is important. They know that all this work they put in now is going to help them in the long run, and maintaining this lifestyle where they're also eating healthy and they're treating their body right. And I feel like one of the biggest things that prevents people from doing that is time. And I know that there are like some workouts, like you offer some 20-minute workouts, for instance, that people can do. So what do you believe is the most effective and efficient approach for being able to burn the fat and gain muscle?
There's multiple things. So just in terms of touching on the first thing that you talked about in terms of time, right? That's a big one. You're 100% right. It's a good point to kind of isolate right now early on. Most people are thinking to themselves, I'm so busy, I don't have time for this, whether it be workouts, whether it be changing their nutrition, learning about their nutrition, finding time in the day to even, to do the research, right? But one of the things that we quickly realize is that if we don't do that now, right? If we don't find the time now to do that, well, time doesn't get any better. It just keeps going. It's always fleeting. There's never more time. It's not like, oh, wow, you know what I've got? I've got like 4 weeks of nothing right now that I get to dive into me being healthy and learning about myself being healthy. So you have to make the decision to etch out some time, whether it be 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day, a half an hour a day, for you to do something. Now, the something you ask about, like, working out and 20-minute workouts, that's a piece of the puzzle, right? And it could be, for someone who's overweight, it could be something that they can implement that would immediately allow them to see results. But chances are, just incorporating 20-minute workouts into your day isn't going to see and yield the results that you're looking for. Because I would imagine that most people are carrying around an extra 15, 20 pounds. They're not happy about that. And the way that they've done it is the way that they've done it in the past. This was when we were young. We just did working out. We went to the gym. We went for runs. We did things like that. And so we do the same thing. And unfortunately, our bodies don't respond to that anymore, which I learned very quickly as I moved into my 30s. My body doesn't respond to just working out, which it did when I was young. And so if we want to burn fat and build muscle, now getting to your question, it's going to have to be a combination of things, Mark. It's going to have to be a combination of understanding your nutrition. Everybody's nutrition is slightly different. We can go into that a bit, obviously. And then the workouts and building muscle is really about working out. Now, do you want to make yourself the example here? Because then there's probably guys just like you where I can give you advice and then that could translate over to anybody in your audience that might be dealing with the same stuff. Are you looking to put on muscle mass?
Sure.
Okay. So you're looking to put on muscle mass. Now you said you're a runner. Does that mean you're carrying some extra weight or you're not carrying any extra weight?
I feel happy with the amount of weight distribution I'm carrying right now, just maybe building a little more.
A little more muscle mass.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay. So there's 3 different types of people. There's an ectomorph, an endomorph, and a mesomorph, right? And an ectomorph is like skinny, has a hard time putting on muscle mass. A mesomorph is more of the athlete, V-shaped, muscular kind of guy, has an easy time putting on muscle mass, but doesn't necessarily hold on to body fat. The ectomorph, which is the skinny guy as well, has a hard time gaining muscle as well as fat. We know those people. We call them string beans or something like that. That's like, or people that are overweight will look at them and go, oh my God, you're so lucky. But unfortunately for those kinds of guys and girls, but mostly guys, because it's usually the guy that's not happy being skinny. Girls are happy as they can be being really skinny. But for guys like that, putting muscle mass can be an uphill battle. And then there's the endomorph, which is the end of the other side of the spectrum, which is somebody who's a little more bulky, a little more square or round body shape. And they can put on muscle like nobody's business, like a linebacker, like put on some serious muscle. But it all comes along with fat. And for them, it's a longer road if they want to burn fat and build muscle. So sounds like you're in the ectomorph phase where you're a little thin. You'd want to be, maybe I'm generalizing. I don't know. I've never seen you. But, so you want to put on a little bit of muscle mass, right? And how do you do that? So the first question is going to be, are you lifting weights or are you doing anything physical that is going to trigger adaptation for your body to actually want to put on muscle mass? Like what I'm asking is our body only responds to stuff in a way, like it only responds if we stress it to the point where it needs to respond. Does that make sense? So if I went for a walk every day and I'm young like you and I don't really have any weight to lose, but I just I walk every day for like 20 minutes, I'm not really going to see any physical response from my body. Like I'm not going to lose any weight. It feels good. Maybe like in terms of mentally, it's a great mental exercise to walk, but my body is not going to physically respond to you taking like a walk or me taking a walk. My body's not going to respond to that. But if I took my body through a workout where if basically my body is thinking, holy moly, if this guy does this workout again tomorrow, I better be ready. So what does it take for me to be ready? Well, he's pushing a lot of weight. I'm not strong enough for this. I don't have enough muscle for this. So I need to put on some muscle. I need to start building some muscle mass in order for my body to respond to this next time, right? It's all about the way, I don't know if you know who Mark Sisson is, but I had him on my show one time and he made a really good point. He talked about like how when we were, back in the hunter-gatherer times, if we were chased by an animal or if we had to fight for our life, our body remembers that. Our body remembers that. So this way, the next time I have to fight for my life, I'm ready for it. And that's the same thing. That's exactly what a workout does for you. Every time you step foot in the gym, your goal is to get the body to want to adapt to whatever it is that you're doing. So if you want to put on muscle mass and you're running every day, right, and that's your form of exercise, well, you're going to have a really hard time gaining muscle mass because what you're telling the body is, I need to be able to go for 20 miles or 15 miles or 5 miles every day. And if I do that, my body is going to say, I don't want to carry all that extra muscle mass. I'm going to stay skinny. I want to be skinny because otherwise this is going to be way too difficult. So your body is going to respond to the thing that you're doing on a consistent basis, like going running. And now for other people, it might be, that's how they lose a lot of weight. They'll just consistently run. But unfortunately, if their goal is to put on muscle mass and get stronger, it actually can work against them. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So if you want to put on muscle mass, the goal would then be, or I should say, the goal is to put on muscle mass, but then the strategy behind it is to get into the gym, and you're going to need to trigger adaptation by lifting weights very heavy. So you're going to have to tell your body every single time that I show up at the gym, it's going to get put through this same exact kind of regimen, which obviously you change up because your body has to adapt. You don't want to do the same thing over and over and over again. And you will then trigger adaptation. And that will be in the form of bigger, quads, bigger hamstrings, bigger biceps, bigger chest, bigger shoulders. Everything will have to grow in order to sustain what you are doing. And then there's the nutrition side of that. Now, I guarantee, the thing is that 90% of the people that are listening to the show are probably, if they're thin guys and want to put on muscle mass, they're happy right now. But most people are actually trying to lose weight. But the side of this in terms of nutrition is, what are you doing? How are you feeding your body in order to allow the adaptation to take place? So we need building blocks. We need enough nutrients to go and feed those muscles, so this way they can actually rebuild and start to grow. It's like building a house without lumber. How do you do it? You can't. It's just you're just wandering around the work zone. There's nothing else. There's nothing happening, and that's what happens when people lift really heavy weights and then they go eat salad and they go eat like a low calorie day. Or they're, I'm not knocking the vegetarian, but it's harder to get in those calories and the nutrients that you need. And I'm not saying you can't get protein in as a vegetarian. You can. You got to really work at it, So the same thing applies when it comes to nutrition. You have to eat in order to achieve what you want. So there's the two aspects of it. You have to trigger the adaptation, and then when the adaptation is getting triggered, you have to feed the body to basically allow it to do its job, which is to rebuild and recover and grow. And that's basically how without getting really talking about specific nutrients and macronutrient profiles and all of that stuff, without breaking that all down, that's how you build muscle mass. And and I have a lot of friends of mine who love to do a lot of cardio. They also love to eat a vegetarian lifestyle, and they're very thin. And they just want to put on muscle mass, and they won't take that part of the advice. And it's literally that simple. But if you're just not willing to follow that simple advice, then I don't know. I don't even know. It's not even like you're on a longer road. You're just on the wrong road. You're just never going to get there. You could just keep doing what you're doing. You're just never going to get there. Does that make sense?
Yes. And one of the things, obviously, about fitness is that we all have this idea that we want to achieve it, but we all want to achieve our goal, whether it be like you run a certain speed, or you're able to lift a certain weight, or you're able to just, your body's at a certain level, and that's the goal that you want to hit. But not everyone's able to do that. Time, a big factor we talked about earlier. But in addition to time being a big issue, what else do you believe holds most people back from reaching their full potential?
Themselves. That is hands down. We're the only, and whether it be our business, this as a person who's creating a business, if you stumble the entire time and you don't take action, the business won't grow. Business won't get better. In fact, it'll probably start shutting down on you, which is what will happen with your body. And so we have, there's all different things. We've done a podcast episode about self-sabotage and kind of figuring out why we do it. But the big thing for most people is it's not knowing what to do. Mark, we just talked about how to put on muscle mass, right? And it is, yes, there's more to it than what we just discussed. But the fact is that most people, not that they don't know it, but that information is not that hard to find. It really isn't. The information on how to be healthy is not that hard to find. The information on how to grow a successful business is not that hard to find. It's the implementation and the consistent implementation that most people can't deal with because they sabotage themselves along the way. And and maybe sabotage isn't even the right word. It's just they don't believe in themselves. They don't believe that they've earned this. They don't believe that they're capable of doing this. They don't believe that they're smart enough. They have all of these self-limiting thoughts that stop them from being able to accomplish this. You've got a podcast that has 118 episodes, and you're 20 years old, and I have gone to the podcast movement 3 years in a row. This will be my 4th year going, and I have met people in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s that have all told me they wanted to start their own podcast, but they never did. And still, year after year, I will see the same people. They keep talking about this podcast that they are going to create, and they do not execute. Now, what is stopping those people, right? It doesn't. And let me ask you, is it really, and not that what you do isn't difficult, because I know it is, because I also have a podcast myself, but let me ask you, what you do, is it so unbelievably difficult that the average person can't figure out how to do it?
Like, if you have the basic framework, I mean, it all comes down to doing, as you pointed out before. So once you have it, not really. I mean, even finding it, it's like, I feel like the people who figured it out, like, they shared in blog posts or videos.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you can go to John Lee Dumas's website, right? If Entrepreneur on Fire, and you can sign up for one of his free how to set up a podcast courses. And within 2 weeks, you will know everything you need to know in order to launch a podcast. And yet, there's so much figuring out when it comes to weight loss, when it comes to building muscle mass, when it comes to mental health, whatever it is. People are just in this analysis. You've heard the term analysis paralysis, gets thrown around quite a bit these days, but it's very true, where people just analyze consistently, never take action, and they just basically stay on the same hamster wheel their entire lives. You know, my wife and I, we do a lot of we do therapy. Like, we're not therapists, but we go to therapy, and it's, we grew up kind of in messed up families in a way. I mean, my family's great, her family's great, but it's like the things that you learn in your life early on, and maybe you'll discover this too as you start to get older. You realize, wow, there's a lot of lessons I learned in my life that don't really translate to when I'm 30. But yet I'm running that same exact program where I'm dealing with a situation the way that I would have dealt with it when I'm 20 years old. But the thing is that that wasn't the right way to do this. And because I always did it the same way, it makes me really uncomfortable. It makes me feel out of place, and I struggle later on in life. Like, I realize, like, the lessons that I learned only take me so far, and that the only thing that's stopping me from being able to, readjust is just my own personal loop that I'm running consistently, and how I deal with information, right? The way that, like, how we do things, like, it's our own. The only thing that we can control when anything comes at us, Mark, is how we respond, right? And so if we're controlling how we respond, we can choose. Let's say you got a letter from the school that said that your parents or your tuition check didn't go through, and that all of your classes just got dropped, and you're not signed up for any of those classes, and it's like you could still pay the tuition, but you've gotten dropped from every single one of those classes, and now you have to, like, you have to pay this bill, you have to stand in a line or whatever it is, and then you have to go and you have to sign up for those classes to try to get back into all those classes. Now, you can choose to freak out, which is, which a lot of people will do, or you get to choose how you deal with that situation, and realize that situation is now completely out of your control. And the only thing that you have control of is how you deal with it. And so this is the thing that we learn in our lives as we get older. And we realize that all of the ways in which we deal with our life, whether it be health, fitness, nutrition, our business, whatever, it's all run on that same kind of thought process that stops us from achieving what that keeps us. It basically puts a ceiling of how far we think we're capable of going, and understanding things. So in terms of like really seeing success, and achieving what you want to achieve in life, you talk about what is it that's standing in our way. It really is your own personal self-limitations. And
I mean, the limitations, you hit it on the head when you said they're self-limitations. They're not limitations imposed by some outside force. And I feel like for some people, it's like you have no idea what my story is. It's definitely some outside force that is limiting me. But it's the mindset that we have when we view something that one person views something as a limitation and someone else will view the same obstacle as something that is not a limitation. So it's entirely based upon how you frame the problem that is in front of you. And I know that we're going to encounter like a lot of problems / challenges throughout our journeys. And Rob, I'm wondering if you could share with us what are the big challenges that you faced in your journey and a powerful lesson you learned during that challenge?
One of the things that I constantly have to remind myself of is that the process is the result. And I do get focused, like we're an achieving society, right? As Americans, we all want to achieve our goals. We all want to excel. We want to be successful, right? So one of the things that comes along with that is basically not being able to see what's right in front of us. And living somewhere in the future, maybe it be a day or two ahead, or maybe it be 5 years living in the future, or living in the past and being judgmental upon ourselves and how we deal with, like, oh, I should have did this, I should have did that, right? So one of the things that I've learned, one of the struggles that I've had over these, over the last 10 years that I have this written on my wall right in front of me, is the process is the result. To remind myself that I do not have to get anything perfect. All I have to do is try. And every single time I try, I learn. Whether I get it right the first time or I get it completely wrong the first time or the third time or the seventh time or the 100th time, right? My goal in life, my mission in life, as I think most people should be, is to continuously learn and be able to, and be okay with the fact that you don't know everything, that you haven't figured it all out. And that's just how I think that's just how our society has trained us, is to be these perfectionists that have to have everything figured out. So in the thing that I struggle with, like I said, just allowing myself to be in the moment, be present, and take every single, you said, like these problems that come up, they're not really problems as much as they're opportunities for you to create solutions. Right. And if we look at it like that, creating is such a kind of a joyful thing. Creating it's an opportunity, right? If you look at life as you have all these opportunities to create solutions or create whatever it is that you want to create, but to create solutions to situations that come up on a day-to-day basis, well then it can no longer be this tidal wave of overwhelm that we tend to get, which is, I think, most people just feel completely overwhelmed most of the time in life. Like there's just too much to do, too much to deal with, too many people to see, too many conversations to have, too much, I have to pay this bill, I have to do that thing. We feel this all the time. It's just the world. We have to check in on Facebook. We have to check in with people. There's just so much on our plate. And if you realize that, like, none of that really, in the grand scheme of things, none of that matters. All that matters is that, you're present in the moment and you're going to be okay. You're going to be able to solve this problem and you're going to be okay. Whatever the problem is, putting on muscle mass, losing body fat, improving your business, making your podcast better, whatever it is, you're going to solve that problem as long as you look at it like it gives me the opportunity to create a solution and not have to deal with the problem.
And those challenges, I mean, they'll come up again and again, and it is all about how we view those challenges that depends on how we are able to confront them and how successful we are at getting through those challenges. And one of the ways that I feel like we can get through challenges is through self-education. Like in the podcast example, like I'm not going to get better at podcasting or anyone just because you want to. There's a lot of research that goes into each episode. There's a lot of research just in podcasting in general, like how Rob is going to podcast movement to learn a lot. I'll actually be going myself. So we are learning a lot about podcasting and other things that we want to get better at. So with that in mind, I'm wondering if you could share with us 3 great books that you believe would have a positive impact on us.
There's so many great books, but one book that I recommend quite often is this book called it's Josh Davis wrote it. It's called 2 Awesome Hours, and it's really about, you know, it's about basically unplugging for a moment and then being able to feel like you have a very productive day. I think that there's nothing worse than the end of the day when you hang up your hat and you're like, "Ugh, I feel like I got nothing done." But this book is great because it gives you these. It's not like you have to revamp your entire lifestyle. It's just these little simple tools that you can use in order to have like 2 awesome hours where you can get so much done and feel really good about yourself. Another book is I just let's see. I just read a couple of books. I just read Headstrong by most of the books that I read, Mark, as you might experience as well from being a podcaster, is people that I interviewed on my show. So like Dave Asprey, because it's like I have a bookshelf full, and I'm trying to think like which one would be more beneficial for your audience. Headstrong by Dave Asprey. It's all about optimizing your lifestyle. And I think I love Dave. Have you heard of Dave? He's the guy who created Bulletproof Coffee. Have you heard of this?
I don't think so.
So Bulletproof Coffee is just it's like this trend that's happening now, and it'll probably keep up for a while, where it's a mixture of MCT oil, which is the fats that you would find in coconut oil, and ghee or grass-fed butter, and you blend it with your coffee. And he has his own personal coffee roasting blend that is mold-free. That's his thing. And anyway, you blend it together and it makes this frothy kind of breakfast, because you're eating so much fat for breakfast that you don't have to eat food. And so he has like these whole ways in which you can run your life that allow you to be at an optimal level. And there's great stuff in there. I love a lot of it, but I don't necessarily feel like making my life all that complicated is necessary. Some people like diving into that stuff, really like biohacking themselves. Not necessarily something that I'm a huge. It's not that I'm not a fan of it, because if you get healthier doing that, fantastic. But not something that I want to prescribe to myself. Let's see, what's another book that I read? I'm just like looking over at my shelf. Oh, it's a good one. I just read, or I'm in the middle of reading Tim Ferriss's Tools of a Titan. That's a good one. Tim is great because he really does break down things that are a little more that are just concepts that most people would overthink, and he simplifies them. His 4 Hour Body is a good book too. So this is just a few. Tim Ferriss is one of those fun people. So I think every entrepreneur needs to be reading Tim Ferriss because he did really reinvent the way we think about work. And I think a lot of people basically quit their jobs or just revamped everything just to get that 4-hour work weekend, for sure. So those are just some of the books that I've enjoyed along the way over the last year or so.
Rob, thank you for those great book recommendations. Tools of Titans is definitely a big book, but well worth it. When you do finish it, those books will be over at the show notes, markgilberti.com/E147. And anyone who is not on Audible yet, who wants to get a free audiobook, you can head over to markgilberti.com/audible to claim your free audiobook. They have millions of books available. That link will be in the show notes. And before we do wrap up this episode, Rob, I've asked you a lot of questions throughout our time together, but what do you believe is one question that we need to be asking ourselves more often?
I think it all comes down to being present. So I think the question should be, how do I feel right now in this moment? How do I feel? And it's a deep question. It really is, because for a lot of people, somebody might have just rolled their eyes, be like, come on, man. But seriously, unless you are willing to check in with yourself and be present within the moment, and if you are an eye roller for how do I feel in this moment, then that means you're not willing to deal with how you're feeling right now, which there's a whole slew of issues there, potentially there, right? So how do we feel physically, emotionally, mentally? How do we feel? And if there's any hiccups there, be open and willing to look into that and take that journey. And that's going to be the road to improvement for ourselves down the line, whether you're 20, 30, 40, 50, all the way up. really paying attention to yourself. How do you feel?
Rob, thank you for sharing with us that great question and for sharing all of your great insights throughout this episode. And for anyone who wants to learn more about Rob, don't forget to check out the Open Sky Fitness podcast. So if you want to get more fit, you want to get healthier, that podcast focuses more on that. So if you enjoy this interview, you want more interviews like that, Open Sky Fitness podcast is the one for you. And Rob is also offering us some free resources. So he's got some free workouts you could do at home just by taking a step away from your desk. Those are over on his site, openskyfitness.com/free workouts. And he also has a travel guide for people who want to do some workouts on the road and continue to eat healthy and to have good nutrition on the road. That is on openskyfitness.com/travel guide. And all of those links will be in the show notes, which again are at markberry.com/E147. Rob, thank you so much for sharing all of your great insights with us. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show.
Pleasure's all mine. Thank you so much, Mark.
How does over 100 retweets per day sound to you? My free ebook, 27 Ways to Get More Retweets on Twitter, has you covered. I use the methods within this ebook to get over 10,000 retweets every single quarter. To learn more and get access to this free resource, visit markberry.com